Welcome back to Ford Friday. We're once again working on our 2019 Ford Explorer. If you don't know what I'm talking about, links up there will get you caught up. Let's get back to work.
So we're going to start with hacking these parts off that are in our way. Got a fender mounting bracket. That's where I want to cut. So we're just going to bend it out of our way so we can cut this upper frame rail and our apron. We need to get these parts out of the way so we can start pulling the parts that are next to what we're going to save. We pull all this even though we're going to replace it, just to get anything else that might be attached to it and off a tiny bit back to where it belongs. If we just cut it all off right away and it happens to be off a couple millimeters, we'll have problems lining up our new parts. It doesn't take long just to put a quick pull on it, make sure everything's right. Watch toes. Good thing I was wearing my steel-toed flip-flops.
Pile.
So now we can get a clamp on our upper rail here. Instead of stretching out that other piece we're throwing away anyway, then we can get it directly on the part that's right next to what we're saving. Give it a little pull. Stretch relieve it. I gotta get the tire out of the way. Tire's got a nice slice in it. We're gonna need a new one. Not right now though. So we'll unplug our ABS wire, disconnect our sway bar link, and pull the nuts off the bolts through the knuckle. This got the ABS wire. I have a tendency to break these, so we'll take it off and put it far away so I don't have to buy one. Knock the bolts out of the knuckle. I'm going to separate our strut. Now I can unbolt the top of the strut. And slide it out. Now we'll start grinding these seam welds off of our apron. I guess this would be our apron support. Pry it out of there. The front tore right out. These seam welds aren't very good. Whatever robot put those in should probably be fired. All the seam welds on these things just tear right off.
Pile.
So now we'll grind out what's left, flatten it out, so that our new welds will go right over it. We'll have a nice surface to weld to. And we'll weld them up so they're not going anywhere. I feel sorry for the next guy, because it ain't coming apart when I'm done. Then we grab the rest of our apron off. Bend the piece out of the way. The hammer Nazis are probably thrilled that I'm not using a body hammer for that. Have no fear, I will misuse the tools later. So we'll grind the rest of the welds flat on top of the rail. We're going to put a bottle jack underneath the engine to hold it up, because we need to pull that engine mount out. It's kind of in our way to get to the back of this apron. So now we can unbolt it from the frame rail and unbolt it from the engine. lift it out of there. Now we get to the rest of our apron. Finally, some spot welds. Knock the apron loose from the tower. Told you I'd misuse my hammer again. So now we take the upper cowl screen off. Pull out the little plastic rivets. Pull little caps off the windshield wipers. Some more plastic rivets. And we can unbolt the windshield wipers with our 1/2 inch impact. Can we say overkill? Pull the wipers off. Now we get the upper cover off of there. That allows us to get to our hood hinges.
In the pile.
Now I got to fight with the bolt for the fender that's underneath the A-pillar trim. We're going to end up replacing that A-pillar trim anyway because the windshield's broke.
In the pile.
So now we're going to go over to our parts front end. Get the upper rail off, the outer piece anyway. We'll drill our 1/8 inch holes first. Then we'll use our step bit to bring them up to 5/16 or 8mm if you're not using Freedom units. We'll unbolt our hood bumper and scribe some lines so that when we put our new part in we can line it up. And we'll drill our spot welds with our flat tip drill bit because we want to save these parts. We'll drill our spot welds all the way along and knock our piece loose. We need to get this out of our way so we can see everything underneath. Our piece is off. Now I can grind that same piece off of our car. Grinding it's faster than drilling it. Now we don't have to worry about making any holes. Of course it doesn't matter on this bottom part, so I'm throwing that piece out anyway, but oh well. Scribe some lines, help us put our new piece back in. Alright, take the rest of the cowl screen out of there. So we can get these welds that are up on the top on the inside. Grind those out. And bend it off of there. Look, gloves. In the pile. Now I found an excuse to use my favorite tool. I need to cut this piece out of the way so we can get to the welds that are inside. You could work around it, but then I can't use my favorite tool. So we'll draw our 1/8 inch holes. Then we'll go back over it with our 5/16. Drill the rest of the apron off. And now we can drill these seam welds off of our apron support and our apron. Just grind out what's there. And knock it loose. And when you're done, just weld it back up there. Cut the rest of our seam welds out. And we'll knock all the seam welds loose. We use our favorite tool to persuade it to come loose. And twist it out. I win. So now we can grind this piece out of the car. And when that's out, we're ready to prep our new piece to go in there. So we'll grind down all of our spot weld areas. Make sure we get a nice good weld with no contaminants. Now we'll do the other side. Then we'll put our weld through primer on. And slide our piece in there. Slides in between that tower and the frame rail. And we'll weld it all up. Now we're ready to clean up our outer rail. And that's it. There's only 2 pieces that we had to take out. It might have looked bad, but this is an easy job. So once we got all the paint off of our welds, put our weld through primer on. So now we can set the outer rail up there. I did paint the inner rail after I welded it up, even though Ford didn't, because there's always room for improvement over the manufacturer, especially when it's Ford. Line it up with our marks. Then we'll measure it just to make sure it's in the right spot. Got the bolts for the hood hinge and the rubber baby buggy bumper. So we'll put those in there to hold this piece down. Then we'll clamp up the rest of it. Put as many clamps on as we can. That way I don't have to stop. I can pretty much just weld everywhere. So we'll move around, keep it from getting too hot. So we run it at clamps. Then we'll move around and keep welding. I figured I'd include a little bit of welding even though you can't see much, just so it proves it is welded together. So even though I didn't show welding in the apron and upper rail assembly, I can assure you it's actually held in with the highest quality duct tape and body filler. Because despite what some people say, I don't do shoddy work. It's more questionable. So now that everything's welded together, it's time for the painting gnomes to come along. So we're going to pull the front end apart, take the shutters out, now unbolt the air box, or what's left of it. Got a wiring harness on the top for the horns. That's not supposed to come off like that. Now we'll pull these baffles off of the radiator. Got the wiring harness at the bottom for the shutters. Just pop it out of its clips. A baffle on the passenger side. Now we can disconnect the rest of the air box. Take it out of our way. Can unbolt the radiator support from the brackets. And now we got to pull the clamps off the radiator hoses as we fight with Satan's little inventions. These are the worst kind, the kind with the locks. So we'll struggle to get them back. I'll try to get the hoses loose. They'd already adhered themselves into the aluminum. Yeah, that's some more wiring harness with these awesome clips that break every time. Thanks, Ford. Now we got our Transcooler lines. Slide these back. Some more spring clamps. Yay. Now we can unbolt the AC lines. One more AC line in the bottom. Now we can unbolt this part of the radiator support. Now you can pull the radiator, condenser, and cooling fans out. Tried taking the whole radiator support out, but didn't want to come with. Struggle. Oh, the wiring harness doesn't want it to go. That's snagged on there. There's a rare sighting of one of the painting gnomes. So now we get the rest of our radiator support out of here. Now that it's out of the way, you can start painting everything up. Now I'm going to go get our new radiator support ready to go back in. So we'll open up our brand new Ford radiator. It's pretty rare that I actually get a Ford radiator. Take our old one apart, pull the bolts out of the cooling fans and slide it out of its tabs. Put our cooling fans on our new radiator. Slide it into its tabs. Put our bolts in. Tighten them down to manufacturer's torque specs. Now back to our old radiator. Pull our condenser off. Pull the bolts out, which are two different sizes for no apparent reason. Now we can transfer over our radiator hoses. More spring clamps. Oh joy. In case you couldn't tell, I don't like spring clamps. So slide them onto our new radiator. Transfer over the other one. It's easier to have these on the radiator when you put it in. Then they connect up on the top. Instead of trying to struggle with these when they're in the car. They're not the easiest to get to. In case you didn't know, when putting the radiator hoses back on, The rad means this side of the hose goes to the radiator. This line here and this line here is where the clamp goes in between. And this line that goes like this lines up with that little notch right here. There's one on the other side too. Does the same thing. And we kind of missed. So we'll line it up. That little white mark lines up with that. We're good. So now we can put our condenser on our radiator. Slide it into our tabs. And bolt it in. And now we're ready to put the cooling assembly into our radiator support. Some genius left the electric driver in the worst place possible. But at least I didn't lose it. A little insulation on the top of the radiator. Got to slide it in there. And slide the radiator down. Make sure the bottom is in its little feet. Slide the top in. Then bolt it in. Put a bolt on the other side. And our radiator support is ready to go in as soon as the painting gnome is done.
So that's it for our Explorer today. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you want to see more of this build or whatever else I'm working on. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.